I don't know how far back to go, but we'll just start at the very beginning.
Tell us the journey.
Yeah. When my mom and dad met, getting right. Okay, here's how it started. Here's what's going. Here's what didn't work. Here's the people I needed to fire. And it's going to be a hell of a ride.
Welcome back to Raw AI Solutions, the podcast where we explore how business leaders are navigating the fast-moving world of AI and digital transformation. I'm Denise Powell, your host, and today we are joined by Max Materne, co-founder and CEO of Ownex, the company behind Dealer Point and Vendor Point, two platforms transforming how powersports and marine industries run, connect, and grow. Max, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Denise.
I'm so glad that you managed to join us. Would you like to kick us off with just telling us a little bit about yourself and your company?
I don't know how far back to go, but we'll just start at the very beginning.
Tell us the journey.
Yeah. When my mom and dad met, getting right. But not too far off of that. I grew up in the motorcycle industry. And so got into it in a funny way. My family was never motorcyclists. We were never into riding. We weren't into that at all. But we went to a trip. We went on a trip to Italy, and while we were there, we saw Vespas everywhere. And I've been born and raised in New Orleans, very European city. So when we were there, my mom decided, hey, you know what? We should open a Vespa dealership in New Orleans. And we just thought that's a funny little idea you had. And fast forward, a year, and we had 12 Vespas delivered to our house, and suddenly had to figure out how to sell motorcycles and Vespas. So we kind of got thrown into this job, this family business that we really didn't necessarily expect. We thought it'd be this fun little side hustle to do for a bit. But it turns out it did quite well in New Orleans. We got the Vespas. We had never even seen one up close. We'd never sat on one or ridden one. So when they arrived, we were not only figuring out the bikes themselves, the Vespas themselves, we were figuring out, what does a dealership do exactly? Like, we'd never stepped foot in a dealership that sells motorcycles or scooters. Sure, we bought cars, but we had to kind of make it up as we went based on what we thought the best customer experience might be. It grew, and it worked really well until Hurricane Katrina, which kind of knocked out our building. There's actually a documentary on it, opening soon by design. Oddly enough, we film crew following us to build a new dealership as it all happened. So it's kind of like it documents our kind of experience of rebuilding post-Katrina. And so it was really interesting. That then turned into basically my mom saying she wasn't that interested in doing this much longer. So my brother and I stepped up. But for 17 years, my brother and I kind of manned this operation. We ran the whole store. About 6 years ago, I started consulting for dealerships across the country because we were taking the information that we learned about how we do it slightly differently than other people. And then we started kind of teaching it to other stores, and it was working, and it was successful, and it was working and growing. But there was one thing that even when in my own store and working with other dealers that kind of frustrated me. And that was, we do this industry, at least in the US, is really just about selling products. We sell a toy to someone, and then we have a service department that maintains the toy. When in reality, from the customer perspective, they're, in the US at least, this is not transportation. People aren't buying motorcycles to get to work here. They're buying motorcycles to live a lifestyle, especially in the BMWs, Ducatis, Triumphs, which is the Harleys in the market that we're in. So when someone in this market decides they're going to be a motorcycle, they're making this lifestyle commitment, and the dealerships do this phenomenal job of convincing them that their life will be more enjoyable if they spend a bunch of money on a really expensive toy. And then they get the thing, and the ownership experience of it really is terrible. And the service visits are bad, and there's no support, and they don't feel like they're a part of the community they thought they were going to be a part of, so they become disenfranchised and they leave. So my business partner and I, he used to work at my dealership, he opened his own store. We got together and decided to create Ownex, which stands for Ownership Experience, and have basically been trying to redesign dealerships and build them in a way that is kind of, what does the dealership of the future look like, that really focuses on lifestyle commitment, helping customers live out this idealized version of themselves.
That's absolutely brilliant. It reminds me of Grant Cardone. He said he was interviewing this guy and he was making so many car dealership sales, like 10 times more than anyone in the car dealership. And he said, how are you doing it? And he said, oh, I'll just take them for a drive into the most scenic place ever. And I'll sit them in the car and tell them of the life they'll have. And by the time I take them back, they buy the car because they want that life. They're not necessarily.
They're buying the lifestyle. They're not buying the product.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Well, in today's episode, we're digging into the 6 biggest challenges that business leaders are facing during IT change and what it actually takes to solve them in a fast-moving, tech-driven market.
Yeah.
You're building tools that power real operational change. What challenges did you see in the industry that made you say, we need to fix this ourselves?
I mentioned for the last 6 years, actually, gosh, longer than that. I sold my dealership in 2016. I had been consulting for a couple of years before that. So I'm almost a decade into consulting. And the things that I had been preaching and still preach in consulting is what I just told you is, I train and I say, we got to make lifestyle better, especially in the service department and the ownership experience. That's the important part. And man, you can get a team of employees fired up. You can get dealership owners fired up and excited and doing it. But then they get back into the dealership and they are thrown right back into the grind of having to run this store with tools that are incredibly antiquated. And so the moment that I was really like, I finally got fed up enough to say, okay, we gotta do it ourselves, was that after 10 years of talking with major brands, with huge dealership groups, with all the like big movers and shakers, the big management systems, the software systems, and saying, hey, okay, this is what we need, the tools we need to be able to do the job easier for the staff, but more engaged for the customers. And no one was doing it. Everybody was saying, yeah, that sounds really tough to pull off. And so I'm not a tech guy. I'm not the CTO. I don't build the software. I'm a pretty picture guy, so I can make mock-ups and make it look right. But I very naively said, I could build a software. I could build a whole new software company from scratch. And so that's the commitment we made 3 years ago because we felt like it needs to happen. It's what the customer wants. It's why we're in the US losing so many customers from the powersports industry. They're aging out, they're getting older, and we're not getting younger ones because we're not listening to what they need. So finally we said, okay, we're going to do it. And we've poured every single penny we've ever made into this vision and this idea. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So when it comes to scaling platforms like Dealer Point and Vendor Point, where have the internal processes needed to be most refined? Was that like on the onboarding of this or the communication or the visibility?
Oh gosh, I wish I could tell you it's this like, oh, it's a matter of hiring the right sales staff. Like none of that stuff is actually what has worked for us. We're still trying to scale. We're still scaling. We're getting our feet under us. And the reason why it's taken us this long to get our feet under us is that in order to put new technology into an existing operation, an existing overworked, understaffed dealership, you can't just give them a tool and say, this is going to save your life, because they don't do it. It doesn't matter how easy you make it, how intuitive it is, how much better it is than the tool they already have. They're not going to change what they're doing unless you like guide them through it and you handhold them through. Your life will get better. Trust me, we're going to do it together. And that has taken a long time. I mean, it took a lot of money for us to figure out, a lot of effort to figure out. And right now, we're still in the midst of it at the moment. So when we started this process, I have a phenomenal mentor, a couple of really great mentors that have helped me through this process. And one of the very first things I learned from my mentor was a guy named Mark Jacobs. And he told me, look, before you ever start building anything, you need to research for as long as you possibly can. Just the money you should be spending is on research right now, not on building, not on making the thing you think that everybody's going to want, but it's got to be about identifying the issues that people are having on the floor, or like on the ground and in the dealerships. So we started doing that, and we developed, before we ever started developing software, we developed a process of studying dealerships, and we call them delve analysis. Now, the delve analysis is really about understanding all the intricacies of the store, the financial health and viability, the inventory and the health of that across all departments, the sales penetration across all departments. Then we look at the location analysis, the staff analysis, the experience. And then the one thing that no one has ever done in our industry, which is just like mind boggling to me, is the study of essentially customer lifetime value. One of the reasons why we can't do it in our industry is that every dealership is its own little franchise. That happens across the globe, right? Every store is running a different software. They change softwares often. There's not this consistent large data set to measure against. If I'm Starbucks, sure, I can pull a decade's worth of customer transactions and understand who's loyal, how I make them loyal, all that. We don't have that in our space. So we had to generate the first thing we did was generate essentially an algorithm to figure out the best way to measure loyalty and re-engagement. And we call that ELV, which is enthusiast lifecycle value. And so step one was study the things and actually create new metrics to understand what we're trying to affect, because we didn't have those. It never existed. So we finally dove into that piece of development. That was the first step into, okay, I've broken Google Sheets. I tried to do it in 50 different pivot tables to make it happen. And finally, that's as skilled as I was at the time. So we broke the internet trying to do that. And then we realized I actually need to hire a CTO. So we found somebody, we brought him in as a contractor. We started building the tools, and he built a phenomenal tool that allowed us to pull the transactional data automatically, immediately process that, show us our seasonality, show us customer engagement. We did equity mining on customers, which is old news in automotive, revolutionary in our space. So we started building that. And here's the hard part, though. We built it intuitively. We built it in a way that basically allowed the employee to still do the work, the engagement with the customer, the calls, the personal lifestyle piece of it. And we just felt like we just gave it to them on a silver platter. You log in every day, it says call these 5 customers. Bam. That's going to grow the loyalty. That we have proof it's going to grow it. We know they have positive equity, or we know they're in a position they're going to need this. And I could not get anyone to do it. And they would sign up for the demo, right? We'd get them a free month of this. It would be a tremendous amount of money with the processing and the data expense to get it from their system. And man, every single one of them would sign up. They'd say, I'm going to do it. I'm so excited. They would hand it off to their sales team, and their sales just didn't want to do a new thing. They didn't want to try something different. So they wouldn't log in. They wouldn't do the job. The management wasn't properly managing the staff because they're overwhelmed and doing other stuff. And so by the end of it, they would go, I didn't really see anything out of it, so I'm not going to pay the monthly fee. So that was the first super gut punch. 2.5 years into it, all of our life savings, mortgages, second mortgages on our house. And we're like, oh, you just don't want to pay. Okay, that's okay. Thanks. So basically we realized we actually need to not come at them with a solution to a problem that they don't know they have. So our approach became, this beginning of this year, was we are not promoting the software, which is such a hard decision to make because we poured everything into it. And what we're focusing on right now has been, we're going to make the industry aware of the problem and aware of the cliff that it's creating. We're going to show them that there needs to be a solution, and then we'll provide them the solution. And when we made that switch from selling a solution to selling a problem, not even selling, that makes it sound like we're making up the problem, to showing the problem that is they're neglecting, that's when everything totally changed. And that's when dealerships started calling up and saying, hey, how can we identify the problem? How can we start picking out directions to do it? And so now we're using our software internally to be able to help people understand how to improve the processes in their dealership. How do you re-engage customers? And then we say, look, you can do it by pulling these reports, and you can run these calculations on them, and you can do this. Trust me, I did it with Google Sheets. You can do it too. And you can do all of that stuff for free. Absolutely. But we also have this very intuitive software that does it for you automatically. So be my guest, whichever one you want to do. And that has really started to get people re-engaged, because we're not selling them a thing. We're saying, we're here to help you. We're here to legitimately, what we see as revolutionize the industry in the way that We want the customers to be happy to be at the dealership, which isn't usually a thing. So that's been the big kind of complicated piece of it. And we're right now, we're in the middle of a really big uh, implementation of this process right now.
That's amazing. It's so true. It's about that sometimes the customer doesn't even know they don't know what their own pain points are. And it's the minute you explain that to them, they go, oh, we need to fix this.
Yeah. They're in this world every day. They get in and they have 50 voicemails and 100 emails, and somehow the day got away. And like, they're not focusing on the things that really are going to drive value.
Yeah. Yeah. Jeez. I think you've been reading my questions.
I did. This is great.
It's brilliant. How do you think about aligning your internal teams, whether that's product engineering, business, your internal teams, as you build for two very different user bases, whether it's dealers versus vendors?
When I was laying in bed 3.5 years ago, thinking about, man, okay, what people need is this customer experience, but where the opportunity comes is in understanding customer trends at scale. That's when I first recognized that what we're trying to build is not a tool for dealers. It's a way to understand building loyalty from the front line, from the dealership side, all the way back to the manufacturer. What units are we building? How do we engage with them? How long should the warranties be? All those things, that's incredibly valuable data that needs to get all the way back to the top. One of the very first meetings, I was incredibly lucky to my mentor, as I mentioned before, a guy named Mark Jacobs. Just out of the blue, I was in this tiny ghost town in Virginia City, Montana, which I think is 300 people, like at its peak in the season. It's an old gold mining ghost town, really cool town. If you're ever in Montana, you should go to it. But I'm there for a wedding, and I stay in this Airbnb behind this nice, pretty house. And we get all checked in. The owner of the house comes down just to greet us, and turns out Mark Jacobs. I had never met the guy. We start talking about life. Hey, what do you do? What's this? I tell him that I'm a consultant in the motorcycle industry. He goes, oh, I'm a consultant too. Like, oh, of course, there's lots of consultants. So that's not surprising. So we start talking about what he does and what I do and how I work with dealers. And he goes, man, you know what? I just landed a client in the powersports, in the motorcycle industry. It's a brand called Tucker. At the time, Tucker was the second largest parts distributor for the entire country. And in my dealership, I bought all my parts from Tucker. So I know the company well. I know the reps really well. And he goes, would you be my subject matter expert? And I was like, absolutely. So fast forward 6 months, and I'm in Dallas, Texas at the Tucker headquarters. First time I'm working officially with my now mentor, Mark. We sit down with that CEO. That's a guy named Mark Materne. And as you can probably tell, I am passionate about this industry and what we're doing and excited about it. And so I know a lot of what's happening at the dealer level, and I know what it's like to work with a distributor like that and where the hangups are, where the good things are. And so we just start going right into it. And I'm showing them data that I've got that shows that dealerships during COVID bought way too much stuff. It was like, how during COVID, everybody's buying toilet paper and we ran out of toilet paper, but nobody's using toilet paper. So same thing happened in dealerships. They're buying way too many batteries and tires and spark plugs, and they're never going to use it.
Yeah.
So they ended up with all this, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of stuff that's just going to rot on their shelves. Granted, crankshafts don't rot, but you get it. Nobody's going to use the thing. So I went to him and said, look, I think that you have a huge problem coming down the pipeline. When the COVID bubble bursts, because COVID was really successful. It was great for our industry. A lot of people bought motorcycles here, at least. So when that bubble bursts and these stores don't have cash flow, they're not going to be buying more accessories and parts from you. So you're going to the dealerships are your main arteries for selling, and you're about to have a huge heart attack. It's clogged up. We immediately connected on that and really he started understanding how I looked at, the entire industry, what happened. And then we just started talking about, here's what I think you should do as a brand, but industry-wide, man, here's what the industry needs. Here's what was going to, Tucker's not going to fix this problem, but the industry needs it. So I'm explaining this big picture. And of course, lo and behold, he was the perfect guy to talk to about this. He had run Harley Davidson. It's kind of a global expansion. So a lot of Europe and Asia, he was in charge of doing. This guy's an industry veteran, has been ever, he ran Olin suspension globally. Like he's the guy to talk to. So he starts getting real excited about it. And we eventually brought him in as our lead for vendor point. So basically, I'm the guy, well, myself and my partner, Danny French, who I started this whole thing with, we're the guys designing and building around the needs of the dealership. And Mark is the guy with the relationships at the vendor side. So as we're building, we're working really closely together to kind of make sure that the dealer to vendor side can be properly aligned, all in the effort to make sure the customer has the best experience. It's like, if we all focus on that being the goal, instead of vendors selling more to the dealers trying to get the best deals over here, like we're neglecting the only person that matters. So that's, fortunately, we ended up with the right team. And I think it's because my partner and I are incredibly passionate about making this industry better.
And you can tell that you're passionate about that as well. Listening to you.
Sometimes it's too passionate. I've heard that, so don't worry.
I was going to say, have you explored using AI internally, maybe for like surfacing dealer insights or automating reports, streamlining your workflows? Have you done any?
Yes. Yes, we would not be where we are right now if AI hadn't come out when it did. Like I said, we were building this thing on spreadsheets and figuring it out on our own for, I guess, really a year and a half before ChatGPT got launched. At the moment it was launched, I was like, this is a game changer for us. And so that allowed us to go from, chugging along, having some good meetings, into like, we can iterate so much faster and we can think through problems so much faster. I see just ChatGPT, on its own, I see it as like a phenomenal thinking partner. It's not something that's going to give me the answer at all. It's going to give me lots of stupid answers that aren't right, but I can wake up in the middle of the night and write for an hour into one prompt. I'm just writing ideas in this, and I can just say, organize my thoughts and send it in. And then now I get to like look back at the brain vomit that I just had. Sorry for the bad visual, but I get to look back at all the ideas that were just like flowing out of me at that moment when I was inspired, and go, oh my God, okay, this piece goes here and this goes here. And so that has been the real benefit. There's this, now having used it for so long, it knows, which is so crazy to say, it knows the mission. It knows kind of like how we've built things. So we've made sure that it aligns with generally like the ethos we have on everything, so that we can say, okay, is this a good idea? And if it isn't a good idea, how can it be a good idea? Or what can I use with this like concept? And it just allows us to iterate so quickly. But that's just ChatGPT. So I do have to say, we spent everything on development. That was sure, we were traveling places, there was expense there, but it was paying tremendous amounts of money to basically our interim CTO, which I still work with very closely, and an entire development team out of Pakistan, UX designer. I mean, like all of those things at the scale that we're at, where we're just trying to be scrappy, like it was costing us $14,000 a month. And it was like, that's way too much when we're not making any money.
Yeah.
We've run out of all of our runway. So just like how when ChatGPT came out, it was like, oh my gosh, we did it. Like, that's the thing. We had Replit was the next one for us. So the beginning of this year, my partner and I were a part of an incubator in New Orleans called Idea Village. And it is a phenomenal program. I mean, they bring in all these mentors and helpers, and you get attorneys and all for free. And in that, one of the most incredible pieces was a guy named Martin Roth, incredible sales guy in the tech world. It's like, I've built some really cool stuff. I think you guys will like it. And I just took to it immediately. To be able to write prompts of an idea of a software, of what it could work and what it could do. I mean, the stuff that we were building was absolutely insane. Basically, what I had spent our life savings on, I was able to recreate within a week of just prompts back and forth. And I was able to build more tools and think it through more. And I'm not saying that builds my final product. I can build things so quickly and like test them the very next day and then iterate a new one. And then once I know we're pretty close, I'm going to send that off to my CTO, and we're going to be able to do it.
I love how you embrace AI. So many businesses are far too scared to go down that route. That's fear because they don't know what is actually out there in the art of the possible. There's also fear because a lot of companies think, oh, we're going to be replaced if we embrace AI. The reality of it is AI can do so much for you, even if it's just 80% of the grunt work, and you still need human intervention, but it's so powerful. People don't realize how much it can really help.
It's the thinking partner thing too, right? It's not just ChatGPT as the thinking partner as well. Because I go, ooh, I want something that can help present a customer their numbers and their financing terms and this, but I want it intuitive and engaging. And I can use the words that I think in, and it builds a thing that is there, that the UX is already done, the interaction's already done, the buttons work, all that stuff. And I can go, ooh, I don't like the color of that button. Or I can say like, ooh, you came up with a different way of doing this than I would have thought of. And now I can iterate on that idea even further. It is not creating the software that is going to be the final product. It is creating the most incredible working prototype. And I can run a business off duct tape and bubble gum, which is basically what this thing is, until it proves that this is the thing that dealers really need. And the problem I had before was that I had to spend as much money as I possibly could to get something that I thought people were going to want. Yeah. And now we go into the store and we say, we're going to design the thing that you need, and I'll have it to you tomorrow morning, and we'll do it together. If you love it as much as I do, if the customer loves it as much as we do, then let's pay to have the thing really built to scale.
And that's the other thing. People also underestimate how big it can go, and then they build it, and then it explodes, and the infrastructure isn't big enough, or the product isn't big enough. And
exactly. Yeah.
A lot of people kick themselves in hindsight.
Yeah. A lot of that terror has kept me up at night as well. Like, am I building it right from scratch? I don't know. No.
So when you're building something that's category defining, how do you decide what to build in-house versus when to bring partners on board or automate things or use external solutions?
I don't know if I'm ready to answer that question yet. And I don't mean that like answering it just because of you, but I don't think I'm at that point yet. Yeah. I also, when I started this a few years ago, I thought, and actually I was told in these incubators, you can't start a tech company without a tech as a founder. Like you don't have somebody who can build the software. You're not a software company. And that is disheartening. I think we can challenge that now. I think with AI, that isn't necessarily true. I don't need to be a technical genius. I can do all the things that are necessary to prove the concept, not having the technical background. I can hire the person to have the technical background. I no longer need the dev team that I had hired previously. In tech businesses, one of the hard pieces is that there's the clients that need the work. There's the salespeople who are going to sell the concepts and the kind of the visionary part of that, like selling this dream of what the software should do and how it should operate. And then you got to get that information from this person, just like myself, who thinks in big pictures, and turn that into like code. And that is a concrete, this is the answer, this is how it works. And I don't have to do that's good enough anymore, because I can literally abuse my AI agent. Don't abuse it. I speak very nicely. I always use please and thank you, because in case it all changes later. But I can spend all night long talking back and forth and saying, oh no, I was kind of meant this. I know I described it this way, but I meant this instead. And now when I have it done, I can go back to my CTO, which here's the best part too. One piece of advice that I would say to anybody who wants to try out Replit: if you're going to do it, don't just start writing random stuff in there. If you've already got software, let ChatGPT know, or even just let Replit know, this is what I build my stuff on, and it will build it in whatever language you need, in whatever format you need, so that you can more easily transfer that from prototype directly into operating product.
That's some great advice. As you look forward to the next stage of growth for Ownex, where would you like to see your business in the next 6 to 12 months?
Gosh, that is so hard. It depends on what day you catch me. I mean, I've got my written down plans of we'll be in this many stores, we'll have this many partnerships with brands, and we're traveling around the country, and I expect to be in dealers and that. But if I'm putting my like middle of the night, big thinking kind of cap on, my team and I want to completely revolutionize how this industry operates. But the thing that I'm not looking to do is destroy the culture that still exists the dealers that have been doing it forever and love their company and love their client base, and they became a dealer because they love motorcycles and this is their thing and they want to share this thing with other people. What I want to do is I want to be able to help those dealers right now who are really, really struggling because economically they're not in a good place at the moment. And I want to help them simplify their jobs so that they can do what they're really good at, which is transferring enthusiasm to customers and getting people excited and loving being on two wheels. That is a big pie in the sky kind of picture of where we want to be, but that's it. We want to make the ownership experience incredible, and that requires making the dealership operation smooth.
Mm. And you can be an industry disruptor without it being a negative thing. And I think what you're doing right here is going to be positive, and really it is going to disrupt the industry, but in a good way.
Yeah. Disrupt makes it sound bad. I want to assist. I don't know. There's got to be a better way than disrupt. I don't know.
We'll chat GPT it.
Yeah, there we go. It'll come up with great stuff. It really will.
And so what is the biggest challenge you're facing in your business right now?
Oh my gosh. I am so glad you asked this question because I am currently in the biggest challenge of my career right now. So oddly enough, I sold this dealership in October of 2019, which in fact was a horrible time to sell a motorcycle dealership in the United States because the industry exploded afterwards. So I got to watch everyone else make money. But the guy I sold my dealership to was a dear friend of mine. And when we decided, my family and I decided we were going to get out, we went to him and we said, hey, look, we said, we know you just bought a dealership in New York. You know how ours operates. You've been watching our numbers for 10 years. We're looking to sell. Would you like to buy? And he did. And so he bought it. Again, he got it at the bottom. He got it at the perfect time. He just killed it. He did a phenomenal job. 2.5 years, 2.5, 3 years. And then at the very top, he's a very intuitive guy. He goes, I think now's the time to sell it. This bigger group decided they had 7 and they were going to go to 14. So they were going to double by buying his stores. But they didn't have the cash to do it yet. So they went into a management agreement where they would run the stores and then over 12 months, they'd pay off the entire amount. But as it turns out, that didn't really work out because the industry started going and the cash wasn't coming in. And then all of a sudden, this store kind of got run into the ground. And so they go, ooh, we can't afford to buy it anymore. But here's it back. Like, I broke your toy. Here's your toy back. So I find this out that he's now just been given back a dealership that is losing so much money that it's cheaper for him to close the store. And that's the thing I grew up in. Literally, like, that door right there is my childhood bedroom. Like, I grew up physically in this building. Like, this is my place. This is my community. I couldn't let that happen. I was like, we can't just shut it down. So I went to Greg and I said, hey, Greg, would you give me a chance to try and save it? You know, we've been trying to convince dealers to do stuff differently than they ever have before. And it's hard when dealerships are on their knees, they're understaffed, they're overworked, they're burnt out, to say, hey, how about you try everything different? So it was actually a great opportunity for me to be able to say, look, if I truly believe that what we're going to do is going to change the industry, then let me put my money where my mouth is. And if you have enough confidence to give me 90 days, maybe I can fix this in 90 days, which is an incredibly short period of time. But then I thought, that's not enough anxiety. So what I decided to do was I'm documenting this entire thing in the kind of largest industry publication called Powersports Business. So every month I'm writing an article about, like, okay, here's how it started. Here's what's going. Here's what didn't work. Here's the people I needed to fire. We're on day 11. So, like, we had to come in and, like, we're shaking things up and we're fixing culture and we're doing totally new things and we're developing software, and it's going to be a hell of a ride. So that we're sharing in those publications. Ownex, it's OWNEX_IO. Even just the first article has come out so far, and the amount of support from the entire industry, it's nice because it's not just like, okay, I don't feel alone in this, but I know how dealership owners and general managers all across the country who are struggling to go into work every day, and to see that, like, hey, you know what? You guys know me already because I've been consulting and training and I'm in a bunch of videos you'll see in the industry. But I decided to put everything on the line, and I'm going to put myself exactly in the shoes that you're in. and I'm going to see if I can make it out. And if I can, it'll be a great roadmap for the industry. If I can't, it'll be fun to watch it burn.
And what do you think the biggest challenge is going to be to
God.
make it successful?
You got another hour? Because I got a whole plan. It's right here. It's right here. Actually, I got a 60-page document. But it comes down to fixing the things that were caused by mismanagement, by a loss of culture. And then I feel confident I can drop expenses. Then I start working in the areas that I know are the low-hanging fruit. From that delve analysis, like I said earlier, I can look at their financial and inventory and sales penetration across all departments. And I know if they were where I expect them to be, then this is going to make it better. So actually, one of the things I built to help my brain work through this and help dealers understand it was actually a star system, kind of like Michelin stars for restaurants or like diamond ratings for hotels. So we can go in and say, okay, this is great. This is not great. And then like your star ratings here, we go through each one of those. And that star rating then allows us to also say, well, if you were at 5 stars, you would be making this much more money. And then when we do that for every single component, we can say, okay, which ones have the biggest ROI? So we take the ROI, we organize those, and we make a plan based on it. And so all those pieces, a lot of them are the basic blocking and tackling that we know can improve profitability in a store. I can get it to break even by doing the basics, but I can get it to great by doing the things that we've been building at Ownex for the last 3 years. And so that's software development on the fly. That is building and iterating quickly. It's being scrappy and building along with a team. And I go sit down with the sales manager here. I'm going to say, what do you like about it? What do you not like about it? I want him to be just as invested in what it looks like and how it works and what it does as I am. Because if he's invested, then he's going to make sure it succeeds just as much as I make sure it succeeds. So that's what the stories are in the articles. That's how I live through all this. So how I don't sleep at night.
Well, that's actually where the best ideas come at night time.
Oh, they do. They do. You better be ready to write them down into ChatGPT as well.
Look, Max, thank you so much for being so transparent and thoughtful. Great practical insight. Absolutely loved having you on the show.
This was great.
Before we wrap up, is there one piece of advice? I know you've given some already, but is there one piece of advice you'd give other founders and CEOs who are navigating IT change inside traditional industries?
Know your customers' problems and don't assume you know the way to solve it. So if you can iterate alongside them and be open to criticism and be open to trying the thing that they suggest, and maybe it's a terrible idea, but you know what? Maybe you'll find out something from it. We're out there trying to solve people's problems. And the only way to solve their problems is to listen to them. That's the thing that I learned at the very beginning. And it's when I started doing that, that's where I feel like the traction for our growth really started.
Brilliant advice. Finally, if listeners would like to know more about Ownex or connect with you directly, where's the best place to do that?
So you can visit Ownex_IO. All of the articles will also be posted on that. So if you want to follow along, you can sign up for the newsletter. You can look at the blog. But also you can shoot me an email just at max@ownex.io. So OWNEX.io.
Well, Max, thank you so much. I really appreciate it and absolutely thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much, Denise. This was a really great time.